The film begins with two best friends, the uptight Katie and the free-spirited Sloane, who are excited about their upcoming trip out of town. They will be working at a farm called Eco-Field Organic Farms for a month to save money for a shopping spree in New York City. The next morning, Katie's cop uncle, Jason, picks them up, and they plan to stay at his place with his girlfriend for a night before heading to the farm. While settling in, Sloane suggests they use fake names during their stay in town. Sloane chooses the name Heather, and Katie picks Ripley. The following day, Uncle Jason drops them off at a station where they'll catch the bus to the farm. Being the protective cop he is, Jason insists they create a safe word system for emergencies. He asks Katie to send him a different code word in alphabetical order each day. The first day's word is apple. After Jason leaves, they have about an hour before the bus arrives, so they decide to wait at a cafe. They quickly catch the attention of two local men and end up sharing a table. The women introduce themselves with their fake names, while the men introduce themselves as brothers, Jed and Lucas. The brothers offer to give them a ride to the farm, and though Katie is hesitant, she agrees after a silent plea from Sloane. They climb into the brothers' blue truck, but things take a turn when Jed deliberately drives past the farm, leaving Katie and Sloane confused. Eventually, they arrive at Jed and Lucas's home, where their suspicious mother invites the women in for tea before heading to the farm. Inside, Katie receives a text from her uncle and, using their agreed-upon safe word, lets him know she's okay. Meanwhile, the two friends eat some pie and drink tea, which they probably shouldn't, but do anyway. Soon, their vision blurs as they realize the drinks were drugged. Sensing danger, they try to escape, but Jed and Lucas quickly overpower them, knocking them unconscious and dragging them back inside. The next day, Katie and Sloane wake up in a panic, chained in the middle of the woods. Jed informs them that this is where they'll be living from now on, providing them with basic amenities like clothes, a bed, and a toilet. In the next scene, Katie and Sloane are dressed when Jed's boss, Boris, arrives and checks Katie's phone to see if anyone knows their location. He soon discovers that they lied about their names and the code word used in her messages. Forced to come clean, Katie and Sloane admit that apple is a safety word they use. Just as they try to regain some control, they prepare to bathe using makeshift showers when the town's sheriff arrives with a gun. It turns out the sheriff is corrupt and involved in human trafficking, coming with the intent to rape one of the women. After his assault, Sloane comforts a visibly shaken Katie. Back in town, Uncle Jason becomes suspicious after noticing that Katie used the same safety word in her latest text. Concerned, he contacts Katie and Sloane's workplace and learns they never arrived. Alarmed, he sets out to find them. Meanwhile, in the woods, Jed and Lucas welcome another client, a scruffy man, who chooses Sloane and takes her into the trailer. It becomes clear that this new customer is unhinged. Back to Jason, he is now certain something is wrong and races to locate the girls. At the same time, Sloane and Katie's situation worsens as another even sketchier customer arrives. This time, a man in a pig mask picks Sloane and takes her into the trailer. Afterward, Katie consoles a traumatized Sloane, who seems even more shaken than before, though it's unclear exactly what the pig mask man did to her. In the next scene, Uncle Jason arrives at the sheriff's office and comes face to face with the perverted sheriff we saw earlier. It's revealed that Jason isn't just a cop, he's actually an FBI agent. He voices his concerns, convinced that his niece has been kidnapped. To add intrigue, for some reason, the FBI uncle reveals to the sheriff that he knows Katie is in trouble because she didn't use a new code word in her latest message. Meanwhile, in the woods, the sheriff has already tipped off the kidnappers, informing them that Katie's uncle is an FBI agent and that she lied about the safe word. Not wanting the FBI to interfere with their human trafficking operation, Boris orders Jed to kill both women and dispose of their bodies. Unbeknownst to them, Katie overhears this conversation. As this unfolds, Uncle Jason heads to the cafe where he last dropped off Katie and Sloane. He questions the barista, who remembers in detail the kind of truck the two women left in. The next day, Katie informs Sloane that the kidnappers plan to kill them, just before the captors arrive with the scruffy guy, leaving him behind to watch over them. Katie seizes the moment, seducing him and, once close enough, savagely rips his throat with her teeth. The two women then free themselves from their chains. Not long after, the sheriff shows up, likely intending to kill them. But just as he steps out of his car, Katie and Sloane manage to steal his vehicle. The two women drive back to town, stopping at a hardware store to stock up on gear. They're preparing for a showdown. They ask the cashier if he knows Boris, the man with the blue truck, and the cashier confirms he knows where Boris lives. Things are about to get real. On the other side of town, Uncle Jason continues his investigation by visiting the local car insurance office. He fabricates a story about accidentally hitting a blue truck and asks who owns it. Meanwhile, Boris, the boss, has just returned home, only to be ambushed by Katie and Sloane, who hurl nail-spiked tennis balls at him, causing serious injuries. With the situation reversed, Boris begs for his life and even offers money in exchange for mercy. At that moment, Uncle Jason arrives outside Boris' house. Inside, Katie and Sloane begin interrogating Boris about the man with the pig mask. When Boris refuses to talk, they impale him with a makeshift spear, eventually killing him. By the time Uncle Jason enters, Katie and Sloane are gone, and he finds Boris dying. Jason then hears the sound of engines and rushes outside, only to see Katie and Sloane driving off. He quickly takes Boris to the hospital. In the next scene, the sheriff informs Jason that Boris didn't survive. Growing more anxious, Jason tries calling Katie, but then, realizing his secret is exposed, the sheriff draws his gun. Meanwhile, Katie and Sloane arrive at a church, revealing that the man in the pig mask is actually the town priest. Sloane enters the church and confronts her rapist. With Katie's support, they finally take him down. As Katie and Sloane drive away, they appear carefree and content. But when they stop and get out of the car, it's revealed that the priest, the pig mask man, has been chained to the back of the truck all along. In their final act of revenge, they douse him in gasoline and set him on fire before driving off. While the two women seem to be thriving, Uncle Jason is now being held captive by the sheriff, who has also captured two new young women. Fortunately, Katie and Sloane arrive just in time to save the day. They tie up the sheriff and begin torturing him by playing a game of Russian roulette. It's clear now that the two women are somewhat unstable, though in a way, it's understandable. The sheriff starts apologizing just before Katie finishes him off with a blow to the head. Afterward, Katie and Sloane release the women and instruct them to free Uncle Jason. Jason tries to ask the women who killed the sheriff, but they refuse to answer out of gratitude, since Katie and Sloane saved their lives. Next, Katie and Sloane visit Jed and Lucas's mother's house and drug her just as she had done to them a few days earlier. They tie her up and take her to the basement, where Jed is bound and gagged. They then bash his head in with baseball bats while forcing the mother to watch. After that, they bring her to Lucas, who is also tied to a chair. However, instead of killing him, they untie him, hand him a bat, and threaten him to beat his own mother. When Lucas expresses his unwillingness, they shoot him dead. Afterwards, the two women arrange his body to make it appear as though he committed suicide. It is then revealed that they intend to blame him for all the murders. Desperate, the mother offers them money in exchange for her life. However, instead of sparing her, Katie takes the lawnmower and brutally kills her with it. In the next scene, Uncle Jason arrives at Katie's house to pick her and Sloane up. It seems some time has passed. Katie and Sloane are dropped off at the airport and eagerly head to New York City.